Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Millcreek Government Channel. I'm Jessica James Stutzman. Lung cancer, heart disease, stroke, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, and at least 13 different types of cancer can be caused by smoking cigarettes. Quitting smoking can add years to your life, and the monetary savings can add up quickly. However, when a strong craving hits, it can be easy to lose sight of the benefits to quitting. To help you either stay or become a non-smoker, we've recruited the public health educator for the Erie County Health Department, Alex Iorio, for today's show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Well, this is such a hot topic, and I'm really glad to go over this, not only to help people quit smoking, but to also prevent it from occurring in teens or adolescents who think this might be a cool habit for them to start. So the first thing I want to jump into is, as the tobacco health educator, what kind of work do you do on a day-to-day basis?
So we have quite a few programs. I work in Cessation, which is a fancy way of saying quit smoking. So I help people quit smoking through individual and group cessation counseling. We do individual and group cessation counseling and provide a free supply of the nicotine replacement therapy. So that's the patch, the gum, or the lozenge. We work on things in the class like managing triggers, identifying why you smoke, and coming up with a unique quit plan for each person so that they can be successful.
And why, I guess, just from your own experience, why do people say that they have began to start smoking?
It's interesting. I hear a lot of different reasons. A lot of times I hear because my parents did it, so that's really common. Our veterans, military, it's huge in the military. Back in the Vietnam War and times before that, military personnel were given tobacco in their stipends every week. Oh, wow. So it was kind of pushed on them, and it was a way to get away and a way to relieve stress. So that initiated a lot of smokers that we deal with currently.
Right, and so you're out in the community and doing a lot of public education and workshops and things like that. Have there been any improvements made through public policy changes as well since you've started?
Yes, we have a program called Young Lungs at Play. This is our signs that we give out for the program. Any place where children play can become a Young Lungs at Play participant. All they have to do is fill out an application. The Millcreek Youth Athletic Association, actually all of their playgrounds and sporting fields are smoke-free now since we started. And once a place joins, they can be put on the state honor roll, we call it. So say you want to look for somewhere you can take your kids where you know it'll be smoke-free, you can go to the State Department of Health website, click on the honor roll, and then click on the county, and it'll show you a list of everywhere you can go.
That's a great link that you just mentioned, and I have seen these signs around Millcreek Township, and I know that we actually did a show not too long ago at Asbury Park and at the barn, and there's a sign right outside of there, so I know that is one of our locations. And I will say one of the things provided to us as well was cigarette butt receptacles by Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful. We were lucky enough to receive about 5 to 7 of those that we have throughout the township. And so you can, as soon as you get to the park, extinguish that butt, put it in the receptacle. And I will say, as a plug for recycling, once you put your cigarette butt in these receptacles, they get collected when they're full, sent back to TerraCycle, and we get the cigarette butts recycled into new park benches, picnic benches, things like that. So, unfortunately, if you are a smoker, go ahead and put it out as soon as you get to the park, or when you see the Young Lungs at Play sign. But again, if you see a receptacle, make sure you put it out in one of those, because then we can, create something new, through that, through those old butts. But what are the health consequences of tobacco use? Maybe not just even cigarettes, but other forms of tobacco.
For all causes of, or all types of tobacco use, it's the #1 preventable cause of death in the United States. About 480,000 people die every year, according to the CDC. it can actually affect every organ or almost every organ system in the body. So a lot of times we don't think about tobacco affecting our eyes and things like that, but yeah, you can get eye diseases associated with tobacco use.
And like you said, it's so preventable. It's just something we just shouldn't start at all.
Right.
And I mentioned that long list of diseases or chronic illnesses at the intro of the show, but it's just something that we can really prevent, and that's what you're here to help us do. So the one thing I want to talk about, and we don't have a prop here in the studio, I know it's frequently used in your department,
right.
but I want to talk about the tar jar prop.
Yes. So the tar jar contains about the amount of tar that goes into a smoker's lungs if they smoke a pack a day for a year. If you think about that, if somebody's smoking for like 30 years and that's when they're ready to quit, that just builds up and builds up and builds up. And we have these little micro hairs that go from they're in our nose, they're in our throat, and they go all the way down to our lungs. They're called cilia. And tobacco smoke actually paralyzes these hairs, so it's hard for smokers' bodies to get that tar and all the gunk out of their lungs. So it's interesting, when people quit smoking, sometimes they develop a cough, but it's actually a sign of healing because these hairs are starting to become no longer paralyzed and cough all that gunk up. So after years and years and years, they're breaking up all of this loose tar and gunk and getting it out of their lungs.
That just sounds so scary to me, to have, tar and other unnatural chemicals and whatnot in our system. I know we talk a lot about on the show about being healthy, and that actually that scares me. I think of tar and I think of what is on the road.
Exactly. When I talk to kids, I show them the tar jar and I say, do you like to run? Do you like to play soccer? Like, what do you like to do? And I say, can you imagine doing that with just 1 year's worth of tar in your lungs? It'd be hard.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. And I did a little research before you came on, and I even found out that as soon as people stop smoking that last cigarette, like you said, those little hairs in our nose and throughout our body, they actually immediately start to heal.
Exactly.
Okay. And e-cigarettes, I will say these are super popular right now.
Yeah.
I see them all the time when we go out, and people think of them as a substitute, and they think they're not as harmful. Can you talk to us about what you see with e-cigarettes?
Sure. So a lot of people assume that e-cigarettes can be used to help them quit. They're not approved for this purpose. E-cigarettes or vape pens, they're lumped together there for this purpose. We can talk about them as if they're in the same category.
But they are two separate categories?
But they are two separate items.
Okay.
The research just isn't there yet to demonstrate whether or not they can safely help somebody quit. Right now, what we're finding, they are not going to be successful quit aids because you're not breaking the hand-to-mouth habit.
Right.
So a lot of times what happens is e-cigarette users quit cigarettes, smoke e-cigarettes for a while, and then end up using both. And we call that being a dual user, where they're regularly smoking cigarettes and e-cigarettes and getting extra levels of nicotine.
And I actually don't know the difference, and maybe our viewers don't either. What is the difference between the e-cigarette and the vape?
Generally, e-cigarettes have like a fillable vial that it's already pre-filled. You can purchase them. Sometimes they're even disposable. Vape pens, that tends to be what people refer to when they have modified units. I'm not super familiar with the vape scene, but there's actually vape competitions. That's a thing that people do. So they modify their unit and try to blow smoke tricks and see who can blow the biggest vape cloud. And there's a circuit that actually travels around the country, and they have different like expos where they compete.
So unfortunately, they're trying to make this look popular and exciting, and we really don't want people to start in the first place. And
they're very, very dangerous. They're also not regulated by the FDA currently, so we really just don't know what's in them. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily safer, just different chemicals as opposed to what's in cigarettes.
Absolutely.
So,
and I do want to say the one thing I've noticed, I'm also the recycling coordinator for the Township, and we do the International Coastal Cleanup every year, and the largest littered item that we find are cigarette butts.
Right.
But interestingly enough, the last time we did the cleanup in September, I actually started finding the vials for the e-cigarettes, which I thought was very interesting that trend was starting to shift toward what was also being littered as well.
Yeah.
So, and then what is the difference between secondhand smoke, which I'm sure everybody knows at this point what secondhand smoke is, but go ahead and tell us what secondhand smoke is, and then also what thirdhand smoke is, because I was not aware of this before this show today.
Sure. So secondhand smoke is made up of two types of smoke, mainstream and side stream, and that's what's burning off the end of the cigarette and what the user exhales. So now you have all this smoke in the air, and it has to settle somewhere. So it's going to settle on carpet, furniture, clothes, skin, walls, anywhere that it can stick to. Once it settles, we know nicotine can be absorbed through the skin, just like with a nicotine patch. So then when you sit on this furniture, if your skin is exposed, you can absorb those chemicals through your skin off of these furnitures, or off of these surfaces. So it's really dangerous for children and babies. They love putting things in their mouth, crawling around on the floor, so they have an increased surface area of skin that's absorbing these chemicals. I'm a big animal lover, and I have 2 dogs, so I hate when people are smoking around my dogs because the secondhand smoke can settle on their fur. And then it can be absorbed through their skin, and especially dogs and cats with longer snouts are at a higher risk of developing nasal cancer from being around second and third-hand smoke.
Oh my gosh, that just pulled on my heartstrings. Everybody knows I'm a huge animal lover, so that is like gut-wrenching for me.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't think about, obviously we know sitting next to somebody and receiving secondhand smoke that way. We're obviously very worried about children with young lungs at play, inhaling the secondhand smoke, but our animals too. And then like you said, the skin is such a large outer organ of our body, and now just if we touch surfaces, carpet, we can also directly, touch the nicotine and almost ingest it into our body that way through third-hand smoke.
The best way I can think of explaining third-hand smoke is when you get into the car of a smoker. You get in, nobody's actively smoking, but you just get that like old stale cigarette smell, and you know that there was a smoker in there. So when you sit on the car seat, you're probably absorbing some of that third-hand smoke through your skin.
That's so scary. So what would you recommend then? Because now at this point, if I were a smoker, which I'm not, I would definitely quit after hearing that. So what would you recommend for somebody who is trying to quit?
We have a lot of resources available in Erie County. We're really fortunate. Something to consider is that you have to be ready to make a change. That's the first and foremost thing. I have some people that are referred to me and they want to quit because their parents want them to. It has to be like an intrinsic desire to quit, because you're making a huge lifestyle change. And in order to change any behavior, whether it's a diet, whatever it is, you have to be internally motivated. So that's the first thing. But if you are ready, we have classes that I offer at the health department, community centers, work sites, churches, wherever I'm needed, I'll go. The classes are 6 weeks long, and we provide the free nicotine replacement therapy, and that's the patch, gum, or lozenge. There's also the Pennsylvania Free Quit line, which is 1-800-QUIT-NOW. When you call that, it's a free service. You can call them as many times as you want, and they'll offer free counseling over the phone. They'll work on the same concepts that I talked about earlier, like trigger management and things like that. And then they'll also mail you a free 4-week supply of nicotine replacement therapy.
That's incredible. There are so many different ways to help people quit. And like you said, sometimes not just having that nicotine be addictive, sometimes it's that hand-to-mouth habit. Like you, yes, exactly. So, this is just so tough for people to do. And, I've known a lot of people who can, like, we discussed before the show, can quit cold turkey, or who, are able to stop for a little while, and then they slip and relapse, and then they pick it up again, and then they stop again. So sometimes it's an ongoing battle with these people. The one thing I wanted to ask about was, are there any phone apps? I know we're always connected to our phone. So are there any phone apps that might help? Or, is that something people can just look on their app store and find something like that? Absolutely.
There's a ton of apps out there to help you quit smoking. Smokefree.gov is a website that we recommend. It's a really good one. I'm not familiar with all of the apps personally that are out there, but whatever works for you, if you're willing to engage and utilize it as a resource, it can be very effective. A lot of the apps will tell you how much money you saved. You punch in how much you smoke a day, and it'll tell you every day, so far you've saved this much, and the next day you've saved this much. Some apps even will let you other people in your family and your friends know that you're quitting, and then they can make motivational videos. And if you let your app know that you're having a bad day, it'll send you one of those motivational videos from your friends and family.
That's really incredible. I think that's so neat. And what about like a quit plan? I know a lot of times when people are trying to eat healthy, we talk about a diary, or like you said, writing down those motivational factors that you can go back to. So tell me, what is a smoking quit plan?
So the first thing we do is identify why the person smokes, and then identify their triggers. So triggers for people tend to be coffee.
So drinking coffee will make some people want to smoke.
If it's something that they've done for a long time, like it's really common that people tell me they wake up in the morning, they have their coffee and a cigarette, or when they let the dog out, or when they get in their car. So my job is to work with them to figure out what they can do instead. So we'll work on things like, okay, you're going to start practicing holding your coffee in the opposite hand and holding a pen in your other hand. When you get in the car, you're going to take a different route, because some people will light up when they pass a certain building, because they know if they start that cigarette now, they'll be done right when they get to work. So I say take a different route, mix it up a little bit, mix up your routine, and it's almost like confusing to your mind, so that way you're out of your routine, you're off balance, and it's harder for you to think about that cigarette.
Those are some really, really good tips for our viewers to use if they are thinking about quitting. And like you said, it has to be something that you want to do.
Right.
And again, like a diet, or making a healthy, positive lifestyle change. This is something that we're striving for long term here. So what if somebody has decided that they want to quit as a part of their New Year's resolution? Do you think that's a good idea? What kind of
Absolutely.
What other factors go into your New Year's resolution if that's what you decide to do?
So I think especially in Erie, it's a really great thing to do. Quitting around the holidays, sometimes people try to do that, and that's great. But it's hard to quit during a really stressful time, because stress is a huge trigger. So waiting till after the holidays and New Year's, I think, is a perfect time. Also, New Year's, you're turning over a new leaf, so why not? In Erie, we have the cold weather and all the snow. So if you smoke only outside, once the snow starts falling, that's a great time, because you won't want to go outside. It's kind of like just another motivating factor to help you be tobacco-free while you're quitting.
I always felt so bad, if somebody does have a smoking habit and they do have to go outside in the winter. I can't even feel my fingers in the winter. I don't even know how you can stand to be outside for the 5 or 10 minutes that you need to smoke a cigarette. So we're really going to try and help you quit this year in 2017. So what you gave us a few tips for making quitting a little easier, but what if somebody has a slip up or a relapse? What would you say to somebody who's gone through the quitting process a few times?
Sure. The average person quits between 6 and 12 times before they're successful. So that's the average. So never give up. It is part of a cycle. Addiction of any kind is a cycle, and actually some research states that nicotine is as addictive as heroin. So nicotine's readily available, it's affordable, it's everywhere. So it's hard to resist. It's something that's very, very hard to quit, especially because it's legal. So if it's a slip, when you're in the midst of a quit, that's one thing. We address a slip in a very different way than we address a relapse. A slip, it's like identify what happened that led to that slip, and come up with a plan for next time. When it's a relapse, then you kind of have to recuperate, take some time, identify a new quit day, because then you just might not be ready.
Okay, so a slip might just be like a one-time. Yep, I couldn't help it, and I had it. Whereas a relapse might be
You're back
a longer
to an everyday.
period. Okay, I see. And the one thing we chatted about before the show was even drinking more water. Taking naps. Why do those help?
I always tell people to be extra nice to yourself while you're quitting smoking, because you're changing something that's been a lifelong habit. You've been doing this for years and years. So if your body's telling you it's extra tired, take an extra nap. like your body's trying to heal. So all the water that you can drink and all the sleep that you need, take it, because your body's just trying to recover.
And you just said that, and I just think that was a really good way to put that. You've damaged your body by putting chemicals inside, and now it is trying to recover. It is trying to heal. You know, so instead of indulging in that cigarette, go ahead and indulge in a nap, or you know, like you said, some extra water. What about family members or significant others, spouses? What can they do to help that person quit smoking? You know, should we yell at them? Should we be comforting? What's, you know, that kind of ranges on a scale, I'm sure, how family members react to people smoking.
Sometimes when I'm teaching a class, I tell people, if you have somebody that is going to be like your big support, bring them to class, because we can talk about what you need. And now what everybody needs is going to be a little bit different, but generally we need support. We don't need someone to reprimand us when we slip up. We need somebody to, when we slip up, to say, you know, next time that happens, give me a call and I'll distract you. Somebody that's going to be there when you're struggling or you're not feeling great and you're having a bad day. Somebody that you can call to get your mind off of it.
And so tough love isn't always the best.
In this case, I don't think it is. I think that just adds, quitting smoking is very stressful, and we don't need any extra stress. So I think support is the most important thing.
Which is probably, unfortunately, probably not the way I would have reacted. I'm a tough love kind of person, so that's good to know that I should maybe go a little bit easier on the smokers in my life that I'm trying to get to quit. So, and then the other thing we chatted a little bit about that I want our viewers to know, what about quitting, you know, cold turkey, or do we do this in steps, or is it really based on each person?
Really based on each person, but the research shows that cold turkey is the least effective way to quit. We all know somebody that has quit cold turkey. I hear it all the time. Even people that come to my class, they say, you know, my husband, my wife, they quit cold turkey and they don't understand why I can't. That's the exception, and that's not the norm. Usually the best way to quit is, and on paper the best way to quit, is through taking a class and utilizing nicotine replacement therapy, because you're getting support for all of the different types of addiction that you're faced with. You know, the nicotine, the habit, you're addressing all of those different factors. So that's what makes you really successsive.
I think those are some really good tips. And then what about somebody who says, and I know we've all heard this one too, it's too late to quit, I've been doing this too long, it's just not worth it.
So, and I get that a lot too. The cancer patient that is still a smoker doesn't see the point in quitting, but your nicotine affects your metabolism, so it affects the rate at which you process drugs. So the treatment that you might be getting for your cancer, for your whatever you might be dealing with, might not be as effective when you're smoking. Nicotine affects the rate at which our body heals. So when you're not smoking, your body's able to heal more quickly regardless of what you have or what you're dealing with. So even if you have a heart attack, your body's going to bounce back more quickly if you're not a smoker. So in every situation, your body's going to recover more quickly, and even if you have like COPD, issues with breathing, your quality of life will improve when you quit smoking, because like we said, even those little things like the hairs that start working again in our body, and our lung capacity starts to improve. All of these things will just improve your ability to breathe and to function.
So it's never too late to quit.
Exactly.
And the last thing, we don't have much time, but the last thing I want to talk about, again, since we keep talking about young lungs at play, how do we help prevent people from even picking up the habit in the first place?
Set a good example for your kids. So moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas that might be smokers, even if they don't think they're exposing their grandchildren and children to secondhand smoke, they still might be exposing them to thirdhand smoke, and they also are not setting a great example for their young ones. So if they see, well, mom does it, dad does it, whoever does it, they might think it's okay for them. So it's important to set a good example, and then to talk to your kids too about why it's bad. We do our best to get into the schools. Another coworker of mine spends a lot of time working with youth. We also do have a youth advocacy program. It's called TRUE, the Tobacco Resistance Unit. It's free to sign up. And once you sign up for that, we go to different advocacy and prevention events. So it's a group of kids and youth that want to be tobacco free, and they do peer-to-peer education, which is huge. That's one thing when you hear it from mom and dad, but when you hear it from your peers as a kid, it has more of an impact.
Mm-hmm. And I think children glamorize what their parents do. So,
Right.
you think so many times a little girl, mimics her mom putting on lipstick or makeup, or, a little boy might, cross, his leg over the same way as grandpa does.
Right.
They mimic, and they, want to mock you. And, so I think picking that cigarette up, or that form of nicotine, I think they see it and they glamorize it as something. When I become older, I can do that too.
Right.
I want to just thank you so much for being here. We're just about out of time, but again, please tell our viewers, what the good websites are to go to, and how they can find out more information on how to quit smoking.
Sure. The big one is 1-800-QUIT-NOW. That's the Pennsylvania Free Quit line. The health department's Facebook page, whenever I have a class coming up in the community, it's always posted on there. And our Facebook is facebook.com/ecdh.org, and we also have a Twitter. Our Twitter is @ERI Public Health. And then my phone number is 814-451-6769. So if you have any questions about quitting smoking at all, anyone can contact me.
Alex, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I think we've hit on a really good New Year's resolution for our viewers to commit to. Viewers, don't forget, when you quit smoking, you're going to protect your loved ones from secondhand and thirdhand smoke. You'll set a good example for your family members. And remember, a life without cigarettes is possible. So I just want to wish you a wonderful day, and until next time, keep tuning into the Millcreek Government Channel.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.